Good morning, all. Welcome to Department of Anatomy, SRTR Medical Government Medical College, Ambazogai. Today we are going to discuss about the fourth ventricle. As we are going through the neuroanatomy lectures, today we are going to discuss about the fourth ventricle. Before we proceed for fourth ventricle, let us have an overlook about what ventricular system is exactly. Up till now, we have seen the central canal of spinal cord through which CSF flows. Above the level of spinal cord, we have seen pons, medulla, and cerebellum as the brain stem. The ventricular system is the brain. We whole the brain. We have uh, three parts: prosencephalon, mesencephalon, and rhombencephalon. The prosencephalon consists of telencephalon and diencephalon. Mesencephalon is midbrain, while rhombencephalon is pons, medulla oblongata, and cerebellum. Here we can see this part is prosencephalon, this part is mesencephalon here lies, and here is the pons, medulla, and cerebellum. So this is the structural view of the brain. The cavity inside the core of brain or neuronal structure or nervous system is the ventricular system. The cavity of telencephalon we have, that is denoted by this red color, is this lateral ventricle. All these things we are going to see in succeeding lectures. The cavity of telencephalon is this lateral ventricle. The cavity of diencephalon is third ventricle, that is denoted by this blue part. This is third ventricle. This lateral ventricle are two in number, so this is third in number. The cavity of mesencephalon, midbrain, is aqueduct of Sylvius, also known as cerebral aqueduct. The cavity of rhombencephalon is fourth ventricle. That is denoted by this green part. We are going to discuss today. So, session objectives for this topic, fourth ventricle. Why it is essential to study the fourth ventricle? We know pons, medulla, and cerebellum have various vital centers for our day-to-day activities. All the vital centers, respiratory center, cardiac center, vomiting center, various cranial nerve nuclei, they all are situated in the pons and medulla. So, the fourth ventricle is situated in the midst. So this is the fourth ventricle that is situated in the midst of all the centers. So, studying the anatomy, the structure of this fourth ventricle is very important, not only academically, also clinically. The second thing, most important, is in the roof of fourth ventricle, we have three foramina. One in the midline, foramen of Magendie, two on the lateral side, foramen of Lashka. The internal ventricle, in the core of brain, we have the ventricular system for CSF circulation. On the surface of brain, we have subarachnoid space for ventricular circulation. The communication between these two, internal and external parts of the circulation, are communicated through the roof of fourth ventricle. So, any pathologies arising in this region are clinically very significant. That's why we need to understand the fourth ventricle structure very well. So, let us proceed for the topic. Fourth ventricle is a tent-like cavity of hindbrain lined by ependyma and filled with CSF. It's a tent-like cavity. Any tent has floor, roof, lateral boundaries, and the cavity. So it's a tent-like cavity of hindbrain lined by ependyma and filled with CSF. It is situated in posterior cranial fossa. Here we can see it is situated just in front of cerebellum, behind the pons and medulla. The shape, when we take a mid-sagittal section, here we can see in mid-sagittal section it's triangular in shape, base directed towards the pons and medulla, and apex is the apex of tent in the core of white matter of cerebellum. While when we take a horizontal section, it is rhomboid in shape. Communications. This fourth ventricle superiorly it communicates with the aqueduct of Sylvius, cerebral aqueduct, that is of the midbrain. Inferiorly it communicates with the central canal of closed part of medulla oblongata, and three more communications through the foramen of Magendie and Lashka, three foramina to subarachnoid space. So these are the communications of fourth ventricle. To study the fourth ventricle, the presenting parts are floor, that is formed by dorsal surface of pons in its upper half and dorsal surface of medulla in its lower half. Roof, that is formed by ventral surface of cerebellum, white matter of cerebellum. Then two lateral boundaries, four lateral boundaries, two superolateral, two inferolateral. Four angles we have: superior, inferior and two lateral angle, and five recesses. Under these headings we are going to discuss this fourth ventricle. We'll see each part one by one. The floor. The floor is formed by dorsal surface of pons and medulla. Roof is formed by cerebellum. Lateral boundaries. Superolaterally we have superior cerebellar peduncles. Superior cerebellar peduncles are forming the superolateral boundaries. Inferolaterally, inferior cerebellar peduncles are the main boundaries that are supported by gracile and cuneate tubercle. We know what gracile and cuneate tubercles are. So inferolaterally, inferior cerebellar peduncles, gracile and cuneate tubercles are the lateral boundaries. Now, angles. Four angles are there. The superior angle is continuous. This is the superior angle. At this level, it communicates with the aqueduct of Sylvius. The inferior angle that communicates with the central canal of closed part of medulla oblongata. Two lateral angles that are continuous with the lateral recesses. We'll see. Now we'll see each part one by one. The floor. Floor is structurally very important. It is also known as rhomboid fossa. Floor is also known as rhomboid fossa as it is rhomboid in shape. On coronal section, we can see it is rhomboid in shape. So this is also known as rhomboid fossa. This floor in the midline has median sulcus. In the midline sulcus, there is a sulcus that divides the floor into exactly two symmetrical halves. So this sulcus is the median. So this sulcus is the median sulcus. On either side of median sulcus, there are two large eminences. Here we can see two large eminences elongating on whole the part of the floor of fourth ventricle. They are known as median eminences. Medial eminences. There are two medial eminences, right and left. Medial eminences are laterally bounded by sulcus limitans. Here you can see this is a sulcus limitans. This sulcus limitans is the lateral boundary of medial eminence. Sulcus limitans at its upper end encloses a small depression known as superior fovea, and at lower end it has got a small depression, inferior fovea. Lateral to sulcus limitans, a large area is known as vestibular area. Vestibular area is present in the pons as well as medulla. This vestibular area overlies the vestibular nuclei, the nuclei of 8th cranial nerve, vestibulocochlear. So this area is extending in pons as well as medulla. So vestibular area is lateral to sulcus limitans. Now, this superior fovea is this at the level of superior fovea. Medial eminence gives a large projection that is known as facial colliculus. This was in the when we have studied the pons, we have seen the internal genu of pons. This internal genu is the turning of the motor fibers of facial nerve. They turn around the abducent nucleus and then emerges on the surface. So this internal genu in the cut section of pons we have studied gives on the surface a projection known as a facial colliculus. This is the facial colliculus situated in the dorsal surface of the pons. at the level of superior fovea. Then inferior fovea is this point. This inferior fovea, uh, at the level of inferior fovea, the sulcus limitans turn medially to meet its opposite fellow. In the midline, the two sulcus limitans they meet in the midline. This divides the area of medial eminence into two triangles. This upper medial triangle is a hypoglossal triangle. This hypoglossal triangle overlies the hypoglossal nucleus, the nucleus of hypoglossal 12th cranial nerve, and the vagal triangle. The vagal triangle is the area that overlies the nuclei of vagus, glossopharyngeal, and cranial accessory nerve. The three nerves, vagal triangle. So this is hypoglossal triangle. This is vagal triangle. Below the vagal triangle, there is a translucent area. Clinically, it is seen as translucent. It is known as funiculus separatus. This funiculus separatus is this translucent area. Below the funiculus, between the funiculus separatus and gracile tubercle, there is a small area. Here we can see the small area is area postrema. Area postrema is an area where there is no blood-brain barrier, devoid of blood-brain barrier. This area is devoid of blood-brain barrier, and a very important center, vomiting center, is situated in area postrema. The obex is the meeting point of two inferolateral boundaries. Obex generally is referred as the inferior angle of floor or rhomboid fossa. The superior fovea, just above the superior area, there is a flattened area which is known as locus ceruleus. Locus ceruleus is a flat bluish gray. That's why name ceruleus. Locus ceruleus is a bluish gray area. It is because of the pigment, melanin pigment situated in this area, that is known as substantia ferruginea. So the important landmarks we have to see on the floor or rhomboid fossa is the midline sulcus that divides into two halves, then two large median eminences on either side, then sulcus limitans that limits the medial eminence. Lateral to sulcus limitans we have vestibular area. Sulcus limitans bifurcates or encloses superior fovea. Above the superior fovea we have locus ceruleus. Then inferior fovea, at the level of inferior fovea, two sulcus limitances they converge to meet in the midline. Then two triangles, hypoglossal triangle, vagal triangle. Then funiculus separatus area postrema, a very important landmark that is seen in the dissection halls, also in the cadavers also, and radiologically also, is the facial colliculus. This facial colliculus which overlies the internal genu of a facial nerve, but the nucleus situated at the level is not facial nucleus. Nucleus situated is abducent nucleus. So this is all about the floor, rhomboid fossa. Now let us move to the roof. The roof is formed by convergence of superior cerebellar peduncles. Here you can see these are two superior cerebellar peduncles and they are converging. The two superior cerebellar peduncles, they are moving upwards. They are forming the superolateral boundaries and converging. So while converging, they are forming the part of roof, superior cerebellar peduncles. The gap between two superior cerebellar peduncles is covered by a thin sheet of white matter that is known as superior medullary velum. This superior medullary velum is a thin sheet of white matter. This area is in close relation of lingula of superior vermis. We have seen vermis. What vermis is, you know. So this area of superior medullary velum is in close relation of lingula of vermis. Remember, this is nervous tissue, white matter. The lower half of the roof is formed by non-nervous sheet. This non-nervous sheet is full of pia matter that is enclosing the telacoidae, choroid plexuses and all. It's a fold of ependyma. This lower triangular half is formed by. It is in relation of nodule of cerebellum, nodule of inferior vermis of cerebellum. So this sheet is known as inferior medullary vellum. The difference is superior medullary vellum is a nervous tissue, inferior medullary vellum is a non-nervous tissue of ependyma. So here we can see the choroid plexuses, two limbs of choroid plexus and a large foramen of Magendie. This foramen of Magendie is a large foramen in the inferior medullary vellum, midline of inferior medullary vellum that communicates, that forms a communication between fourth ventricle and cerebellomedullary cistern, also known as cisterna magna. So this is about the roof. Now lateral boundaries we have seen, we'll see telacoidae. Telacoidae is a double layered fold of pia matter that encloses choroid plexus. The choroid plexus is, this is the capillary plexus that is derived from posterior inferior cerebellar artery. The chief artery in this region, posterior inferior cerebellar artery, is the artery that gives rise to this choroid plexus. This choroid plexus is situated in the two folds of pia matter. Ventrally traced, this and ventral fold of this pia matter of telacoidae is forming the roof, and dorsally it is reflected on itself on the ventral surface of cerebellum. The choroid plexus is a T-shaped, two horizontal limbs and a vertical limb. This vertical limb is double layered, you can see, and the two lateral foramen of Luschka also you can see, the lateral recesses in this diagram you can see, the two lateral recesses through which the impinging choroid plexus you can see. So telacoidae is double layered fold of pia matter that encloses choroid plexus. Choroid plexus is capillary plexus derived from posterior inferior cerebellar artery. Then the recesses. Recesses are nothing but the extensions of the cavity. Actual cavity is this part of the fourth ventricle and this recesses are the extensions. So we have two large lateral recesses, one post dorsal midline recess and two lateral dorsal recesses. So two lateral recesses are there near the floor. They are in between the flocculus of cerebellum and nodule of cerebellum. These two lateral recesses are this. At the apex of two lateral recesses we have foramina of Luschka. Here you can see we have at the two lateral recesses we have foramina of Luschka. Then one midline recess extends dorsally cranial to nodule. This recess is situated. The lateral recesses are in between inferior cerebellar peduncle and flocculus. So here the flocculus is situated, here the nodule is situated. At this level flocculus should be situated, at this level nodule should be situated. So lateral recess is between inferior cerebellar peduncle ventrally and flocculus dorsally, while one midline recess, dorsomedian recess, is cranial to nodule and two dorsolateral recesses are on lateral side of the nodule. So these are the recesses of cavity. These are nothing but the extensions of cavity. So this is all about the structural anatomy we have seen of fourth ventricle. Now clinical significance. Why do we need to study? Why it is essential to study the fourth ventricle? As we have seen, various vital centers of pons medulla are situated in region. the fibers going to cerebellum, afferents and efferents coming from cerebellum, all are situated through the superior and inferior cerebellar peduncles. So all the structures are in vicinity of this cerebellar, in the vicinity of this fourth ventricle. Now the communications, hydrocephalus, we need to see what hydrocephalus is. Hydrocephalus is the accumulation of CSF, or if the CSF is secreted in excessive quantity or the circulation is hampered of CSF, is known as hydrocephalus, that create pressure on the vital centers. It can be internal hydrocephalus or external hydrocephalus. The foramina in the roof, if they are blocked because of the tumors in this region or pathology in the region of fourth ventricle, it leads to accumulation of CSF in the fourth ventricle, dilatation of fourth ventricle, that is known as internal hydrocephalus. Then tumors in this region, the most common tumor in this region is the medulloblastoma. The medulloblastoma is a very common tumor. So this tumor may give rise to pressure and hydrocephalus. So this is all about the structure or anatomy of fourth ventricle. Thank you.